Say something profound.
We're here, and we're about to make history.
All right.
Hey, welcome to the Good But Not Soft podcast.
Whoop, whoop.
We got Ben here with us, and Ron. We're kicking it here again. We're missing Josh. Sad face.
I know.
Sad emoji.
He's in Colorado streaming Call of Duty without us. It's so sad.
So sad. But we're here, and we got some lively content.
Yeah, it should be entertaining.
We want you guys to give your answers in the comment section. But Ben, while you're here, what era would you go back to live in or experience if you could choose?
I don't think I have one in particular I
Okay.
would want over the others. Most of my choices would be around conflicts, military conflicts.
Interesting. Okay.
You
You
know,
like
that might be-
fights?
that might be, this egotistical, misogynistic thing. I don't know, but
Talk about Rome. The fall of Rome.
somehow be able to go back and be in Delta during the Desert Storm era. That would be fascinating to me. Then go back World War II. Then jump back quite a ways, and probably like the Crusades.
Okay. Yeah. That's pretty far back.
Yeah,
At least technology wise. Why?
Something about a sword.
We don't have many of those.
That or like go a little, I don't know, maybe even kind of around the same era, maybe even a little more recent than the Crusades. And go like somewhere like Spain or France or something. Like run around with a, rapier, which is like the long, slender sword for dueling and stuff.
Yeah. Fancy.
I said something about a sword, although I feel like the Scottish claymore is probably more what my build would
Be best fitted.
best suited for a 4 foot plus, 20 something pound sword.
Nice. That'd be heavy. For me, it would be right before World War II, just because of all the people signing up to go fight, knowing that they would probably lose their lives, and I'm talking about America, and just that national pride of man, we're all in this. The women started working and going to the factories and all the things, because America had to keep going.
Yeah.
Right? We were fighting overseas and America just had to keep going, and then coming back, right? So that feeling of, man, we're going to save the world. This is what they're thinking, right? They're fighting a national power who's he isn't just hey, I want this and this is where I want to stop. He's I want everything. So that feeling right before of we're fighting to save the world, let's go, and then coming back and feeling we saved the world, and now let's make babies. A baby boom, right? And then another thing I would want to, which I was alive during this time, but 2001, after 9/11, I heard someone, actually I have a friend who's Air Force, serves in the Air Force, and he told me that after 9/11, everyone had a flag.
Yeah.
In some way, they were waving it. American flag everywhere, every car, and people. And you guys have shared stories about people who drove all the way up to New York. And, from wherever in 24, 48 hours, the whole week, whatever it was. And I want to be alive. Or, I was alive. I was 4 years old. Just turned 4. And I have no memories of what I was doing. But to be alive during a time where everybody was like, we are in this together. Because, like, that's what America is about.
Right.
Now, there's a lot of talk about our differences, highlighting our differences and pointing out our differences. But in reality, it's what we're in it together for that makes America great and good and amazing, as opposed to, wow, you're different than I am. Let's talk about that. It's like, no, we're going to go fight this world power. We're going to fight terrorism. We're going to...
Much more united.
All these, yes. Yeah, United States. And another era I would want to go back to is when America was being founded. And those, like, our Constitution is being written, talked about. George Washington is deciding not to continue to be another, like, to go another term, because he's like, like, I've led enough. And what president was, I remember you sharing one time, because I wasn't aware that it was not always set in stone or in our laws that presidents could only serve 2 terms. Like, up until whatever president was, it was an honorary. Hey,
they kind of just did, yeah.
Yeah, which is like amazing to me, because it's like George Washington sets that precedent, and everyone's like, yeah, up until whatever president was.
I'm trying to remember the George Washington quote whenever he got out. It was something along the line of, like, was it Adams next? Along the line of, like, I am fairly out, you are fairly in, let's see who's happier. It was like, I'm no longer in power, and you are, but one of us is going to be happier in life than the other. It's like, nice.
But to be alive during a time where, like, our nation's being born and writing all these amazing documents or all these words, I'm going through the Constitution or the Declaration of Independence in my English classes, 11th and 10th grade currently, and we're reading it. And this is my first time reading the whole Declaration of Independence.
For those of you who have not seen our previous episodes, he's a teacher.
Gotta go back.
He's not in 11th grade. He's teaching it.
Yeah, I look like I'm in 11th grade.
He was held back a few years.
Yeah, Mama didn't want to let me go. And so we're reading it for the first time, and it's only it's a shorter read. Yeah,
it's not 1,000 pages.
Yeah, right. Exactly. But I'm reading it, and I'm like, this is so good.
Yeah.
Like, there's a phrase that I won't remember it accurately, but it's something to the effect of, our nation will run good or smoothly to the consent of those being governed, and the govern, like, something to the effect of, as long as those being governed are happy with how they're being governed, like, we're all going to be happy. Another time I would like to be alive in is just when monarchs were everywhere and having the feeling of being in a kingdom and not knowing what's happening elsewhere, like, essentially.
Yeah.
But also, like, one person's in power and they may be benevolent, they may be evil, whatever the case is, but just, like, I don't know. I think that would be so interesting, making your own clothes, and people are doing that now to Amish, right? But
it's like, more than just the Amish doing that, but
like building walls, and
we don't have to worry about making those jokes because it's not like they'll ever see it.
That's valid, and if they are, you're in trouble. They're probably actually, if they are listening to this now, they're on that time where they get to decide and go into the world, and see if it's worth it. It is worth. Anyways, I digress. But yeah, those would be mine.
Yeah,
and then the future, right? I want to see flying cars.
I don't know. These self-driving cars are already rough enough.
iRobot.
It's like self-driving car. Like, oh, that car wrecked. Like,
Yeah.
These are safe. Boom. Oh. Didn't account for a deer jumping in front of it. That's odd.
Yeah. What are the odds?
So, another kind of, kind of similar-ish question, but not favorite fictional book series or book or just singular, series, whatever.
I would say, for me, let me think about it.
Okay, so while you think about it, if I had to choose a favorite, probably would be Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. Kind of that Tolkien's, works.
Yeah.
Add in the Silmarillion, all that good stuff.
The Silmarillion is like, that's
is very
hardcore
long.
nerd stuff where
It
like
is
you got to be
long.
faithful to Tolkien to have read and gone through that.
I
And
listened to it.
I did too. We're not that faithful, but it gets in the weeds. It's obscure, and I think his son actually finished that. So
He's overly descriptive on stuff.
yeah,
It's like, 30 minutes later, it's like, okay, it's a lake. Like, we understand it's a lake. Like,
Yeah.
yes.
And it's I really, to be so creative to create your own language, like for a book, right? Like, it's not like, hey, we're talking this and humans need to communicate. He's like, you know what, just for people to read. Here's that. And then all the names, they're more weirder in the Silmarillion than any other one. Like, Frodo's pretty simple, but the Yondur, it's like, wow. Okay, my favorite series.
Or just singular book. It could be.
I really like The Last Battle. And I'm picking that one out of the Narnia series because it was a book I truly couldn't put down. Like, have you ever had a book where you like began to read and it was one of those books. Reading it for the first time was actually during COVID 2020. So I grew up, didn't read much books, got into middle school and went on a Goosebump kind of series and kind of season of life where I read a whole bunch of Goosebump books, and I was drawn because they were scary, but I was so scared and didn't want to know what happened. But I did want to know what happened because I'm not the guy that starts a book and doesn't finish it, right? I'm like, I need to know what happens. Stopped reading, got to college, and started reading more non-fictional books because I thought to myself, hey, I just want information. Friends suggested the Chronicles of Narnia series, and I was blown away. And then I got to The Last Battle, and it was like a roller coaster ride of emotions because I was like, the ape. I forget his name. But that ape is so evil and manipulating the stupid donkey and taking over Narnia, and then Tilion is gonna fight with his unicorn and save, and then it was a roller coaster of emotions, and finally at the end, Aslan shows up and saves the world actually ends. Spoiler alert. and people end up getting saved. But it was a book I couldn't put down. And I've read it probably 5 times since, and we'll read it more.
Okay, so now, non-fictional. And you're a preacher, so the Bible has to be the right answer. But other than that,
a book in the Bible.
Ron's like, actually, name.
Yeah.
Like, have you ever read the Book of the Maccabees? It didn't quite make the cut.
Yeah. Or Enoch.
Yeah. First and second Enoch and third Enoch.
Is there a third Enoch?
I mean,
Probably.
there's first and second for sure. Third is kind of an iffy one, but it does exist.
So, my book of the year last year was Grit by Angela Duckworth.
Okay, I don't think I know what that is.
It is such a good book. She does fascinating research on why essentially people stick with things. Like, why do people have the grit to persevere? And she found that part of it was people being happy in what they do.
Funny how that works.
Yeah. And so grit really was really profound for me. And then for this year so far, we're in April. A good book has been The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy, I think it is. But it's essentially about doing the things, whatever the things are, whatever your goals are, and watching them compound. Because when I was younger, and still now I struggle with this, I wanted results fast. Like, okay, I started working out. I need to have these muscles by Tuesday, right? And it's Monday. And that book helped me realize, man, you reap the benefits while you consistently do the thing. Because one, you're being consistent at something, but two, the results you're looking for, you'll get eventually later. And so that's been a really encouraging book to me because I have we got 8 months left, and I want to consistently get to the end and say, okay, I did this, and this, and these are the benefits I got, as opposed to, all right, I did this for 2 months and it didn't work. Well, it would have started working the 4th month.
Yeah.
What
it's
about
funny
you?
that you said weightlifting was one of the things that brought up. I was literally just telling somebody the other day, weightlifting, I feel like, has helped me a lot with perspective on setting goals and being realistic. I want to be able to bench at least 300.
Interesting. Okay.
But I can look at the pile of weights and I can already deadlift 300, but I know I can't bench that. I've had a bad shoulder and stuff, and 135 is pretty much it for reps. I can do a little more, but it's like a 2 or 3 rep max. 135 I can get like 10 out of. So I can start boosting that up a little bit. But like, I can look at that and be like, okay, I'm at 135 now, and we're only a little bit into the year. 200 is a very reasonable goal by the end of the year.
Okay.
Now next year, 300. By the end of next year, I plan to be benching 3.
Okay.
Or 3 plus. But this year, by the end of the year, my goal is to bench 225.
Yeah.
And we'll see where we go from there.
And
so for me, it's like I physically can see there's a stack of weights over here, and I'm like, well, I can. That stack's smaller now. There's more on the bar this time.
Yeah.
And so I was literally just telling somebody like yesterday. I feel like that's helped me be able to kind of like see a realistic goal.
Yeah.
And it's also just motivating to be able to, like I said, physically see the stack get smaller and then what's on the bar get larger.
That's real interesting.
But yeah, that's been something. So now I guess it's my turn.
Yeah.
Favorite books?
Non-fiction.
I mean, one of my favorite recently has been The Warrior Poet Way by John Lovell.
That's off.
And then trying to think what else. Like, basically, the stuff up here is some of my favorites. You can't see most of it. You can only see a few up here, and then there's more down here as well. But Scars and Stripes by Tim Kennedy. I love that book. Basically anything by Admiral McRaven.
Yeah.
All his stuff is great. I recently got I listened to it. I have the book. I haven't physically read it, but I listened to it on audiobook. To Start With Why.
Oh, Simon Sinek.
Mm-hmm. And I listened to that, and
that's good.
It was interesting. I wouldn't say it's my favorite thing ever, but it was interesting. Some of the stuff I agreed with, and some of it I was like, oh, I didn't know this, and some of it was like, I don't know if I fully agree with that, but It was just a very fascinating book.
I like his leadership stuff, which most of it's leadership that's kind of
Right.
intertwined with business, but the real framework cultivating and real good with giving you concepts that, man, this is like great. One of those is his The Infinite Game book, where he talks about, which is like fascinating stuff, because the world works in systems and once in patterns, and when you recognize things, you're more likely to succeed or flourish, go for whatever the case is. And he talks about in The Infinite Game how there are finite games that have determined players, a determined way to score, and a determined end time.
Right.
Football, this side versus that side, and this is how you score a touch, and we end at the fourth quarter, or whatever the case is. Then there are infinite games, and he says infinite games are mostly for business, where like it just goes on, right? Mm-hmm. There's not determined players. Anybody could jump into business. There's no way to score.
My end goal is to make this product. But then you make that product, and it's like, well, maybe I can make it better.
Yeah,
and then this person's like, we'll improve that product, and we'll do
exactly.
this.
And this is back and forth. And so one of the things he says is, in an infinite game, how do you say, which a lot of wireless companies say, we're the fastest?
Mm-hmm.
Well, Verizon, what metrics did you use? It's like we're the fastest in this zip code, and then or did AT&T agree to that? Like, there's no agreed upon rules.
Yeah,
it's an infinite game, and so he says the goal in business is not to win, because you can't win. In football, you could win. Basketball,
well, and it depends on how you define win. So, like, if it's like, all right, I'm going to be the best, you can't necessarily be the best forever and always. Now, you might be the best for your career, and that you could define in your opinion, I won. I was my business was the number one in this until I retired. Once I retire, I don't care. It's not my problem anymore.
Yeah.
But we stayed number one throughout this. So in my opinion, I won. So it depends on how you define win. But
yeah, which is a subjective part.
Right.
Everyone's going to define a win a different way. But he says the goal of business is to stay in it as long as you can. And for me, and that also translates to leadership. And for me, I think to myself, wow. It's like, yeah, let's stay, because now it isn't, hey, I'm competing against this guy, because we could both win. Mm-hmm. Like, in a way, like we could both win and we could both succeed. So it's really good. So when you said start with why, I thought, like, man,
yeah,
that's good stuff.
So those are all some great ones I like. We've got a whole, like I said, basically all this stuff over here is stuff I like. It's great. I love military, like memoirs and stuff like that, and autobiographies and biography, just yeah. All that history books and stuff, like just that genre. I really enjoy. I think that's why The Warrior Poet Way stuck out to me so much, and why I liked it is because it was actually kind of not. It was kind of separate from that genre.
Yeah.
And so it was really interesting.
One of the random things I would like to do someday is to visit presidential libraries.
Yeah.
And just like read about them and see some of their accomplishments, and just be in a space where they're like, man, these are all the things this president has done. Because I think it's, one, fascinating to learn about these people, our presidents, but two, something about autobiographies, right? Like recording the accomplishments of this person just could, like, man, I want to do something great. I want to do something good, but not soft, or whatever the case is.
Work it in where you can.
Kadoosh. So
Yeah. So tell us in the comments what are some of your favorite books. You can tell us both fiction and nonfiction books. And yeah. Do you have anything else for us today?
not tonight.
All right. Well, thank you so much for watching. Leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that, stuff. Hit the bell, whatever you're supposed to do. And we'll see you in the next one.
All right. Later.
All right, before we go, any good advice?
What shall I say? Skip the hot dog, get a burger.